Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of All About the Gear. My name is Frederick Van Johnson. I'm sitting here with Mr. Doug K, and we decided for this particular show, actually Doug decided, that we would do something a little different for this episode of All About the Gear, and that is we're not going to talk about gear. So this show, although it's entitled All About the Gear, this one's not about gear. This is about film and the idea of shooting film. Doug is on this tear/tangent of kind of going back to basics, and that's kind of where I came from. So we're kind of meeting somewhere in the middle. I started with film. Doug is now experimenting with film again, and he's been doing it for a couple days now, or a couple weeks or so. We're gonna find out what his findings were in this digital world. Does film still have a place in the digital world that we all live in? Doug K, how has it been? I mean, going back to basics, those 36 exposure rolls, no chimping, all that. How was it?
Makes me feel young again. The gray hair just doesn't fall out. That's not the right analogy. Yeah, it's been a whole month, and that's gave me enough time to figure this out. You know, I shot film as a kid. I shot film seriously in the 70s. But the last film camera, did you see that picture of me with a 4x5 camera floating around?
I did. I saw that. Yeah.
And the crazy hair?
Yeah, you had hair, and it had some pigment in there.
It did. So, yeah, I did everything from 4x5 to 35 millimeter. Never got above 4x5. But I guess in the late 90s, like everybody else, I started with digital, and I never used a film camera since.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
So you remember when we first started the show going back almost 2 years ago, one of the first cameras we reviewed was the Leica M240. And that gave me a chance to use not only this camera, but these gorgeous lenses. And I fell in love with the lenses, but there was no way I was going to ever buy a $7,000 camera.
Yeah.
So I said, well, it'd be great if I could do something else. And so what happened was Sony came out with the A7 series of cameras, boy, not even 2 years ago, I think now. Mm-hmm. And you could use an adapter to put on M-mount lenses, including Leica, Zeiss, Voigtlander, and a whole bunch of other lenses. So that's what I did. I bought a Sony A7 and committed pretty much to that product line. And the primary reason, especially since there weren't many lenses for that camera, was to use these M-mount lenses. And I slowly, over a couple of years, collected a few really nice lenses. This is a 35 millimeter f2 Summicron. I've got a 50, I've got a 90, I've got a really antique 135, and I've been enjoying shooting with them. But then I said, hey, I could go out and buy a used Leica film body for relatively little money, and I could shoot film. Mm-hmm. And so many people talk about that. You know, Valerie was on This Week in Photo recently, and she was talking about the fact that lots of people are starting to shoot film and so forth. So I decided to give it a try. So what happened was I ended up with this.
Look at that, baby. Wow, nice.
So this camera was made 30 years ago in 1985. I've got the Leica logo taped over. It is a Leica M6. It's one of the great Leica film cameras, but it's 30 years old. It's in beautiful condition. I bought it used through eBay.
Wow.
And I just love it.
Would you pay for that through eBay?
This was $1,250, so it wasn't cheap. It's not the most recent film camera, because they made an M7, but it's a beautifully made piece of hardware, very simple, primitive, you'd say in some ways, but just been terrific. So that's the introduction. I got into shooting film because I had two reasons. One is I had all the lenses, and I was really curious how it would change my photography and what it might mean.
So I'm interested to dive into this. So before we do that, on this lens or that particular camera body, what was your thinking behind blacking out the logos?
Oh, I'll tell you, the minute you go out around any people, you attract so much attention. People come up, they want to talk to you, they say, what model is it? Or they know what model it is, they want to know what lens you're using.
Because it's a Leica, you mean?
Because it's Leica, it's got that red logo on it, and it just stands out like crazy. It was pretty, and just blacking it out made a difference. Now people look at it and saying, what is that? But they don't bother me. So that was an important thing.
Very smart, very smart. Yeah, I did that early on to I think it was my Olympus camera for similar reasons. I just didn't want to engage in the conversation about what camera is that, and oh, you like Olympus? Why do you like Olympus? And all that. I'm just like, you know what? Pay no attention to this camera. This isn't the camera you're looking for.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so let's dive into the some of your learnings in this, like the why did you do this, and what, just your overall learnings. Like, give me your top line. If you had to take away one thing from this experience, what would it be?
Well, I think the main thing is that it's made me, and you've heard most of these things, it made me slower and more deliberate in my photography.
Yeah.
I would normally go out for a day of street photography and shoot 400 or 500 shots in a 4-hour session, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And now a full session for me is probably to shoot 3 rolls of 36, and that's 108 images. That's a lot of film shots to take in one day.
Yeah.
So just on the math, it slows me down quite a bit.
Yeah, and with that, when you're out there shooting, you get 36 exposures on there, so you're not doing continuous high, you're not spray and praying. Each shot is considered. I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, I mean, spray and pray is great because we do reviews of digital, and we talk, how many frames a second does it shoot? Well, if you're really fast, this will shoot 1 frame a second. But you got to be fast, right? And I think that's not the point, because after 36 seconds, it's you got to reload. It's like having a revolver,
Yeah.
It's a slow process. So and just the process of having to reload the camera, rewind the film with a little crank and take off the bottom and take the film out. But it's
I'll tell you, when I was shooting film, one of the things that was always in my head, I don't know why, is that whenever I clicked that shutter button, I could almost hear a cash register sound in my head, because it was money every time you clicked that, and it was even more money if you actually got a usable shot, right? So
that's right, because then you had to print the damn thing.
It was expensive to shoot, which I think made me a better photographer, because I'm like, okay, let me think about what I'm doing here. Where's the light going? Do I really want to take this shot? No, I'll pass on that one. Let me wait for a better shot. Right. So whereas today it's just like click, 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 go, get it.
Yeah, at the moment I'm sending my stuff out for developing and scanning, although I've also started scanning myself. I'm doing all my post-production in Lightroom and Photoshop. Mm-hmm. So, it depends on the film stock you're using and so forth, but you got to figure it costs you about $1 every time you push the button. Mm-hmm. And, if I was concerned about whether I was going to spend $100 a day or not in photography, that would be a problem. But mm-hmm. It does give you, it makes you think, and makes you realize, you're going to run out of film and you're going to have to reload, so maybe you better think before you push the button.
Yeah. Now, what were you shooting out there? What kind of film? What film stock?
Oh, I have shot everything. Let's say I got a couple here just to prove it that I've got the stuff, right?
I'm hoping when you edit this thing, you're going to overlay some cool shots that you made.
I better, yeah. They're a little overblown in the video there, but there's a Tri-X 400.
Oh yeah.
Fujicolor Pro 400H.
Yeah.
I have to look up because I've shot so many different stocks. I've been experimenting. Part of my goal was to go out and try all these different film stocks, and see what it was like.
Yeah.
I've shot Ilford HP5 400, Porta 400 Pro from Kodak. I even tried slide films. I tried Velvia 100 and 100F.
Oh, I remember that.
Because I wanted to see, what that was like. And so, I'm looking 1, 2, 3, 4. I've tried 7 film stocks in the last month, and learned.
What out of those? What has been your favorite to date, and what was your favorite back in the day?
Well, back in the day, it was Pan X, Plus X, and Tri-X.
Panatomic X.
Panatomic X, right?
32 ISO. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it 32 or 6? Oh, yeah, because Plus X was 60. No, I think it might have been 25.
Oh, was it 25? You're right. It was
Plus X was 64.
Yeah, 25. That was the long exposure go-to film back then, right?
But outdoors, you could do it handheld. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Gorgeous film, very, very fine grain.
I was gonna say, that grain pattern was like tight, so you could blow that thing up poster size and it still wouldn't fall apart.
Yeah. So now I've been shooting a lot of Tri-X just because so many street photographers do, and I'm sort of shocked by how much grain it has.
Yeah.
It's really a grainy film. I'm sort of surprised by that. But I've been shooting a lot of the Fujicolor 400H Pro, and I've been doing that not just for color, but also for the purpose of shooting black and white. It's very fine grain. It doesn't have the latitude and the dynamic range of the black and white films, but it's got two advantages. One is that when you scan it, you can remove dust and scratches with a technology called ICE or ICE, which you can't do with black and white film. And the other is that, of course, you get the ability to adjust the brightness that's contributed by each of the colors in your film. So you can actually do some really nice tweaking of your images because you start with color. And anybody who's done black and white using Silver Effects Pro or Lightroom knows exactly what that means.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, this whole thing is just so interesting because I think about it. You know, the nostalgic Frederick looks at it like, oh man, I remember all the muscle memory you built up from changing film and, you know, even pulling it out of the carton and, you know, having all those extra plastic film canisters, which we used to find things to do with as well, you know, all that stuff, and then it's just sort of gone. So I'm curious, like when you first started playing with film again, did you have to rebuild the muscle memory for loading the film in the camera? Did you mess up or anything?
I've got to say, the first roll of film I blew because I didn't have the camera loaded properly. And so that's a rookie mistake that I'll only make once, I hope. But the best part was shooting my first roll of film was out there like this, you know, rangefinder, focus, click the button, and then, oh, look at the back of the camera.
Yeah.
You know, that's why they call it chimping, because you feel like a chimp.
Yeah, a trained chimp. Yeah.
They call it chumping. I don't know. Anyway, that was funny. That took me almost 2 rolls of film to get over. Because you're so used to doing that. So it's certainly comfortable. I mean, the Leica camera is gorgeous. It feels great. It's not lightweight. It's heavy, you know. But
did you feel limited out there? Because when I think about it, like I want to try it and kind of go back to my roots of film and get out there and do what you did and play with it and see what I can come back with. See if I remember how to actually shoot without, you know, the Luke Skywalker targeting computer on, you know. I want to turn the computer off and see if I can actually make an image still. But I mean, but on the other side of that, I'm thinking when I'm shooting now, the way that I think and I shoot has changed so much. Could I even go back? Because I'm looking at that LCD, I'm using focus peaking, I'm transferring images over to my phone and editing them. I'm touching the LCD to focus because I have a camera that has a touchscreen on it. You know, and I'm like, you know, would it be too much of an effort to go back in time to shoot film again?
That's just so funny because we're always talking about touchscreens, and this couldn't be farther from touchscreen if it tried, you know.
I know.
But it's almost a different medium. It's a different machine. I mean, it's, you know, for example, you know, the first shot you take pretty much determines the ISO for the rest of the roll, because you're either going to process it normal, or you're going to pull it a stop, or push it a stop. That's it, right?
Yeah.
And you can't change it halfway through the roll realistically. But you know, it's so simple. There are no menus. There are no buttons.
It's liberating too, right?
It is very, very liberating.
From the weight of choice, it goes away, and you can focus on the art because you only have three. You have 3. Actually, when you load the film, you have 2 things to mess with in there. You have, you know, the f-stop and the shutter speed. Right? And focus, of course. That's it, right?
Right. That's it. And you know, things that you don't think about that come back to you. For example, the end of the day ritual. You don't have to, you know, check if your sensor's dirty. There's no sensor. You don't have to back up your stuff because you can't.
Yeah.
Right. There are no files to upload. There's nothing to transfer to your mobile device. All you can do, in my case, is package the film up and send it to the lab. Or you know what? Maybe let it sit around for a couple of days until you have a few rolls and send them all together to save the postage, right?
Let it marinate. Yeah, why not?
Exactly. You know, because you're not going to see them for a week no matter what happens, right?
Yeah. But I would argue that you are backing up because the film itself is your backup.
That's right. But if you lose the film, you've lost it all.
Then then it's game over.
So, you know, it's just such a different attitude. And, you know, for example, there's this, in the beginning, there's an anxiety about, you know, did I get the shot or not? Did I get the exposure right? But first of all, you know, the latitude of these films, the dynamic range is so great that, you know, if you're over or under a stop, who cares? You know?
Except with slide film. With slide film.
Slide films are very limited, and I did shoot the Velvia, but you know what I did for that? I took out my old light meter. Right?
Oh, nice.
Right?
Sekonic.
Yeah.
Is
So
it the one that I have?
it's not an old one. This is actually a relatively new Sekonic.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute.
This
This
is
is
the
important. Oh, look at this.
L358.
In the drawer right behind me. Wait for it. Look at that, baby.
There you go.
Look at that. Is that the same one?
L358 Flashmaster.
L358, baby, right there.
Yeah. Great. I mean, it's a great meter. But, you know, if you go outdoors, you know, if you're shooting outdoors, it's assuming that the light is the same where your subject is. You just put out the meter and you say, all right, you know, ASA, hey, there, ASA, ISO 400, you know, 500th of a second. You know, the Sunny 16 rule. The Sunny 16 rule says, you know, set your shutter speed at your ISO, set your aperture at f16 for bright sun. That's all you have to remember. Not only that, I'll tell you what, I mean, the M6 has a meter in it. A very simple meter, but it works quite well.
Was it like a needle, like a dial?
It's got two arrows. It's got red arrows on either side in the viewfinder, and the one on one side says you're over, the other says you're under, and if they're both on, you're dead on.
Nice.
But, you know, and it's sort of a spot. It covers like 1/3 of the area. I mean, you got to see this. The people who were watching the video. See that white dot?
Yeah.
That's where the light meter is.
Nice.
And you know what that white dot is sitting on?
What?
It's sitting on the shutter. And you know what the shutter is made out of? Cloth.
A cloth shutter.
It's a cloth shutter. And it moves horizontally. And it's just an engineering marvel. It's so simple.
See, cameras are some of the most unsung heroes in the mechanical engineering world, I think, because they do so much and so fast that they're taken for granted.
Yeah, I mean, and I've gone farther now. What I've done is I've memorized the exposure settings for all outdoor light conditions. So now I don't even use the built-in meter, you know. So I'll set the shutter speed at the ISO of the film. I shoot 400 ISO almost all the time. It's either Tri-X or the you know, the Fuji Pro 400H, for example. But I know that out there I'm going to shoot f16 in bright sun. I'm going to shoot f11 in the haze. I'm going to shoot f8 if it's sort of bright and cloudy, and I'm going to shoot f5.6 if it's open shade. And that's it. I mean, I'm doing street photography, which means I'm not too worried about the depth of field. If it's 5.6 or more, I'm shooting fairly wide angle.
Yep.
And so I just look at the light. I set the lens. Everything's fine. Again, if I'm a little over, if I'm a little under, it's not a big deal. One of the things you have to get used to, you know, in digital, we freak out about the highlights. Because, you know, if you blow out the highlights, it's clipped. There just aren't any numbers left.
And they're not coming back.
They're not coming back. There's nothing you can do. And shooting negative, not slide, but negative is the opposite of that. And that is, if you overexpose, you just compress, and you squeeze more and more out of that silver or whatever you're using. And so, you know, you don't worry about the highlights. You worry a little bit about the shadows because, you know, the shadows are going to get, you know, really thin on the negative. But
yeah, on the negative, if you have shadows that have no detail in them, you look at the negative, it's just clear. There's nothing there because it's letting all the light through to expose the paper. So there's not like you can burn more to get more detail out of it. It's actually there's zero detail in the shadows.
That's right. But, you know, if you look at most street photography from the last, I don't know, 60 years, you just let the shadows go. You let them go black. You know, losing detail in the shadows in street photography is generally not considered a problem. So exposure is really much easier, and, you know, again, for me, unless I'm shooting interiors or I'm shooting at night, even at night I can pretty much guess the exposure. I'm not even looking at the built-in light meter. Another nice thing about this camera is, unless you need the light meter, it has no battery. There are no spare batteries to take. There's nothing to worry about electrically in the camera except the light meter. So
you'll be the guy out there actually documenting San Francisco after the EMP hits, right?
Exactly. Except for the pacemaker, right?
Except for the pacemaker, yeah. That could get in the way.
Yeah, right. I'm glad I don't have a pacemaker, but I made to make that clear so people wouldn't worry about me. Right?
I know. They're like, Doug, you got a pacemaker? Oh, no.
So, you know, what happens is you get this confidence. You know, you used to, with digital, you worry, did I get the shot? I need to check, you know, do I take an extra shot? How's it going to be?
Yeah.
Here, you know, you just focus on not the camera, you focus on what you're looking at, and you get the right shot at the right time, and you move on to the next one. And you do it with just one exposure, and you push the button at the right time. You're not using a motor drive, or a machine gun shutter.
Yeah.
And so again, you've got a lot of latitude in the negative stocks, like you say, not in the slide stocks, but in the negatives. You really do.
Do you think you could shoot a wedding with a manual exposure, with a full manual camera?
I can't shoot a wedding anyway, so that's. In fact,
if there was a gun to your head and you had to shoot a wedding.
I got booked for a wedding in August, and I know that the week before I'm gonna be freaking out. But could I shoot a wedding? Probably not very successfully. I don't think this is a good tool for that. But it's a street photographer's dream, and I think that people, even if you're not, quote, a street photographer, my theory after an entire 1 month of experience is that this is marvelous to make you a better photographer. And you can use all the metaphors you want. You can say the manual transmission versus the automatic transmission.
Yeah.
I used to fly airplanes. I used to fly gliders. And flying a glider is definitely great training for a powered aircraft, because all of your mistakes are amplified, and then you get back in an airplane where, hey, if it doesn't work out, you just add more fuel, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So it's just like light. I mean, an airplane, the physics of aeronautics versus the physics of light. It's these things don't change over time. Our technologies change and get different or better or worse depending on your perspective, but light is still going at the same speed, right? And it still has the same properties, diffuse, specular, and all that stuff. It's all the art of photography has not changed, but our tools have changed a little bit. And what you're doing is you're in a time machine, going back in time to what was state of the art back then, capturing the same light rays, right? So it's kind of cool.
And when we joke about the genesis of the All About the Gear show being, quote, it's not about the gear.
Yeah.
And a camera like the M6 proves it. It's like I say, it's 30 years old. It can't be more obsolete than it is. It's as long as there's film available, I never have to get a better camera. Think how often we upgrade our digital cameras. Got to get the latest. Got to get the greatest. Things get better.
Yeah.
This camera, the only thing that's going to change maybe is the film stock, and that doesn't happen except once a decade. So
and just to hammer that point home, that guy has been sitting in somewhere on ice for 30 years.
Right.
And it came out and started taking pictures like it never stopped taking pictures, right?
Just remarkable. And the lenses, again, I happen to have fairly new lenses, but I've got one that's 30 years old. My 135 f4 is a 30-year-old lens. I picked it up for $300.
Wow.
And so they last forever. There's
so
like you make jokes about physics. Physics doesn't change, right?
Physics doesn't change, not in this dimension at least. Okay, so let's talk about we talked about sort of changing your muscle memory and relearning how to put film in there and all that stuff. The cameras that you tend to use, your digital cameras, your Sonys, that's your primary camera. They have a electronic viewfinder on there, so you can see through the lens and see what you're getting and all that. How was that? How is it going from electronic viewfinder to an optical viewfinder?
And again, this isn't an optical viewfinder; it's a rangefinder, right?
A rangefinder, yeah.
You think about it normally. Well, I don't know what the terminology really is, but I think of an optical viewfinder, which is what we get with our DSLRs, which is you're looking at the image bounced off a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's immediate. It's bright. This feels even more immediate because there's not even a mirror. You push the button. There's not a little flicker. You're just looking at the whole thing. So it has a great feeling of immediacy. And like many things with a camera that doesn't have the distractions of buttons and dials and menus and so forth, you actually do feel closer to your subject. I don't mean physically closer. I mean more connected with your subject. Yeah. And that's a difference you can feel. Any photographer would feel that.
You don't have a supercomputer between you and the subject that's calculating what you see.
It's great.
Yeah. Well, speaking of supercomputers, what about focusing? So this guy obviously is an autofocus. Did you have any issues kind of retraining and getting back into the manual focus kind of mode of doing things?
Yeah, there are a couple of things. One is this has, the rangefinder in the Leica, this one is a split down the middle. So you have two half images that are translucent, and you focus and they come together, right? So
Split
you get,
prism.
Yeah, split prism with a vertical split.
Okay.
The M6 has a well-known problem, which is that is actually illuminated by, it's hard to see in the dark here, but there's a little panel right here. No, this big thing here. This big thing, which looks like a flash, actually is the thing that brings in the light that lights up the split image rangefinder, okay?
Okay.
And the problem is that if light hits this, you get flare and you can't see that. So there are all sorts of add-ons. I'm trying to mitigate that a bit. But it can be a little frustrating if you're out and shooting into the sunlight. You really can't see this to focus it. If you can see it, when you can see it, it's extremely fast and very nice for focusing. And then, of course, by shooting things like 35 millimeter lenses or even 28 millimeter lenses, you can zone focus a lot of stuff. So you can sit there, if you're going to shoot at f/16 with a 35 millimeter, you set it for your hyperfocal distance, and everything up to maybe, I don't know, 1.5 meters. From 1.5 meters to infinity is probably in focus.
And just make sure that they're in that approximate distance away, and boom, you're good to go.
Right. And so, when you think about that, you're not concerned about exposure because you know the light. You're not concerned about focus because you're pre-focusing. And so all you're doing is looking at your subject. And that means 100% of your attention goes there, and that means you're going to get a better shot.
Yeah. So it sounds so far like you had a good experience shooting film, and you're probably going to continue. What are some of the negatives? What are some of the drawbacks that you hit, either shooting film, or some things that you're like, oh, if I was shooting digital, I would have got the shot?
Yeah, well, one of them certainly is you're going to miss a lot of shots because other than the scenario I just talked about where everything is preset and you can just push the button. That means you do have to preset the focus, obviously. And there are things that will happen. Someone will do something and you'll turn around and you won't be quite set for the image. With the digital, you might have been able to grab it because let the camera do the focus, let the camera do the exposure. So that's one of the things.
Yeah.
There are certain things that you can't do with this. You can't, you're not going to shoot sports. You're not going to shoot action. You're not going to shoot nature, for example. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that you just can't do with this, and you're not going to get the pictures right away, right?
Right, of course, yeah.
So you got the missed opportunities, and I, at this stage, I've shot probably, only about 15, 16 rolls of film so far, maybe a little more. I'm still making mistakes, and they're the kind of mistakes that I will make fewer of in the future, but I'll still make some. But it's not bad. It's not bad. It's you're learning something over again.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, the whole thing is interesting. It's bringing back memories of when you speak of mistakes like, oops, I put tungsten film in the camera and I'm shooting portraits. Now I got to figure out how to print these things.
Yeah, well, there is no tungsten film anymore.
Yeah, there's no tungsten, huh?
No, everything's daylight balanced. I think maybe it must exist somewhere, but everything's pretty much daylight balanced now.
Ah, jeez.
But you know what? There's almost no tungsten light because if you have a strobe, the strobe is a daylight balanced strobe anyway.
That's true. Yeah, I think we use tungsten. We use tungsten for copy work because we had a big copy stand with tungsten lights on there, and we'd put them in there and then mount the camera to copy things.
But you also had flash bulbs. I don't know if you had flash bulbs.
You never had flash bulbs.
I had flash bulbs.
You're going back too far in time, H.G. Wells. We did not have flash bulbs.
At least I didn't have flash powder. But yeah, no, my flash stuff was taken with bulbs.
Yeah, I remember as a kid we had those little bulbs with the little cube. Remember those? You put them on your thing.
That's a flash tube. That's an advanced feature. Come on.
That was high tech.
I'm going back to the individual bulbs.
Oh, geez, wow.
Yeah, the cubes you put them on like a one of those little Instamatic kind of cameras, right? And they would spin every exposure they turn.
Yeah,
and
you
after
get like four shots, and then they're done. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I want some of those. I want to play with those again. That was cool.
They're probably
Okay,
illegal,
so
right?
Doug, let's switch gears and talk about, okay, so you're out there, you're shooting, you come back with a roll of film or multiple rolls of film. Now what? Now you want to see what you got. So
Yeah.
did you have a dark room set up somewhere in Casa de K or
Yeah.
what?
You know, uh, I've been married many, many years, and over those years, I have had, since I've been married, I've had two dark rooms in two homes, and I don't think my wife wants hypo in the kitchen again.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's going to happen, although I have put a call into the local sewer district to find out what chemicals you can put down the drain now and what you can't. Of course, years ago, you put everything down the drain. Who would think, right?
Everything. Silver, all that stuff, yeah.
So I have a feeling, I know that hypo can't go down because that's got the silver in it, but maybe some of the other chemicals. But no, what I've done is, just like I've tried a bunch of film stocks, I asked people, so what do I do with the film? And
You're like, now
me,
what?
yeah, there was a really good lab around here where I live, and they're now out of business, no surprise. So I asked around, where do the serious film guys send their stuff? I got the names of 3 labs here on the west coast of the U.S. and sent each of them a number of rolls, and I'm still experimenting before I finalize on one. But there are interesting things about them. For example, you know, they cut the negatives into different numbers of images per strip, and depending on how you want to store them, you know, if they cut them 5 to a strip, you may not fit them into the holder that you want, or if they do it 6 a strip, it might not fit. The turnaround times don't vary too much. The cost doesn't vary too much. But that's what I've been doing, is in addition to learning and trying film stocks, I've been experimenting with labs too.
Love it, love it. So what were those labs that you tried?
The 3 that I've used, and these may not be known to, except to people here on the western part of the U.S., are North Coast Photo, which is one I'm liking very much. I'll probably stick with them. One called Richard Photo Lab. Both of those are in Southern California, and one here in San Francisco area called PhotoWorks.
Okay.
And,
I remember PhotoWorks. PhotoWorks back in the day were the guys that used to take old motion picture film and roll it and send it to you, and with mailers, so that you'd get it and then you'd shoot it and put it in their mailer and send it back to them, and they would print it for you for like some really cheap price.
Yeah, well, I used to do that. In fact, I've been going through, if anybody follows me on Facebook or Google Plus, they've seen I've been going through old negatives. I found just an incredible cache of old images in the closet, and sure enough, a lot of them are shot on motion picture stock.
Wow.
So
wow.
yeah, I did that.
Okay, so here's the question. So you found those labs. Why not just go to one of those parking lot photo mats or or Costco or CVS or something?
When's the last time you saw a parking lot photo mat? Come on.
But you remember those?
Of course, they were little like almost kiosks. Some guy had to work in those, right?
Yeah, now they've changed the coffee stations, or like Cafino or whatever they call them now, where you can go get your latte.
So people were saying go to Costco. So I went to the local Costco, which again is a big box chain here in the U.S. And they said, my local one said, no, Costco doesn't do that anymore. They don't take film. And so I went to the local big drugstore chain, CVS. Same thing. They don't do film anymore.
Yeah, the kid behind the counter is probably like, sir, what is this?
Yeah, I think CVS might, because they still take those not instant cameras, but those disposable cameras. So I think maybe I might be wrong about CVS, but I'd rather have a good lab, especially if I'm going to have them do the scanning, because I have found from doing my own scanning, even with a high quality scanner, that there is, so far I have not been able to do a scan as good as a good lab. Yeah, that's an important thing. So
they're going to use a drum scanner or some other high resolution scanner on there.
I'm not sure what they use. One of the labs lets you pick. They have 2 different scanner technologies. I didn't recognize the name of either one, and they said we recommend this for color and this for black and white. But I've scanned some of the film back that I also had them scan, and for me to get a scan as good as theirs takes a lot of work. What's interesting about the scans is they're pretty low-res JPEGs that you get back.
Right? Yeah, I've done this before, and I was let down at the result, because I did this thing where I sent in Yeah, I'm the family historian for all of our, my dad made me the historian by dropping a box of photos on me.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, let me get all this stuff scanned in and share it with the family so they can all have access to everything. So I sent everything off, and it came back with these little tiny JPEGs. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what am I going to do with that? So
Right.
it was a bust.
Well, I turned around and I did some, they call them raw files with the ViewScan software, but
Yeah.
they're TIFF files, 16-bit TIFF files, 4,000 dots per inch, pretty good. But to be honest, the ones that are maybe 15 megapixels look better than the big, 40 megabyte TIFF files that I created. So, um, high-end digital really has better resolution than film. It doesn't have the dynamic range, it probably doesn't have the color, all sorts of other things, but it does have detail that you really can't get in film. And I actually didn't remember that. So that was interesting to see.
Interesting.
As long as you're doing 35 millimeter. Now you go back to large format. You go to 4x5 or 8x10, and now you're talking resolution.
Yeah, 6x7. I was a Mamiya 6x7 guy. With remember the RB67?
No, I never used it.
Oh, yeah, that was a beast. I mean, whenever you took a picture with that, you knew you were taking a picture because it was like, it kind of sounded like your Sony A7.
Clunk, huh?
Clunk, when you take a shot. Yeah.
I never used a camera bigger than 4x5, but you put something like Panatomic X in a 4x5 negative, and you have just incredible resolution.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you use a 4x5 is a view camera, right? So,
right.
Yeah, we shot with those as well. But then the 67 RZ and the RB67, that's millimeter. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's smaller. It's medium format. So,
yeah, gotcha. Okay.
But still a gigantic negative to play with. We mainly shot those because with portraits and stuff, because you had to, with that large negative, you could retouch it.
That's right.
You could actually retouch the negative. You can't really retouch a 35 millimeter; it's too small. But with the bigger ones, you could retouch.
So one of the things interesting about the labs is the turnaround time. If you mail it out, so it takes you. If you have a local lab, you can get same-day processing, obviously. Mm-hmm. But if you mail it out, it's probably going to take 2 days to get there. The lab might do it in 1 day. That's 3 days now. But you can either have them ship the negatives back right away and wait 2 days. But now, if you have them scan them, most of the labs will let you download the images by FTP.
Oh, good.
So you save the 2 days that it would take them to send the CD or the DVD back to you.
Yeah, I don't have a way to read a CD or DVD on my computer anyway.
I don't either. I had to go to this thing, right? This is right, the little plug-in USB CD reader. This is sitting on my desk because I got a CD back from one of the labs.
Yeah, it's a super drive. Yeah, I have one of those in a drawer somewhere for just in case I get some optical media.
Yeah, I had to borrow it from my wife off of her computer. So, So anyway, you can, you're looking at somewhere between 3 days and 6 days to get your images back, primarily depending on whether you're going to download them by FTP or wait for a CD to come back. You can get all sorts of different options depending on the lab and whether they're cut or not cut, how they're cut, what kind of thing they come back in. For those of you looking at the video, I love the what they call negative pages. That's the wrong book. But negative pages give you essentially an oversized binder page, and you get one roll per page like this.
I've got volumes of those things, man.
That's my favorite way to store them. So, again, some of the labs will ship you back in those pages. You don't even have to go out and buy them. It's really nice.
So you're skipping over cost. So what are we looking at in terms of cost to get a roll of film developed and back? Yeah,
well, the film itself costs typically $5 for black and white, $10 for most color films. Mm-hmm. By the time you're done, the scanning, the developing and scanning is $22 to $28 for black and white, maybe $25 to $30, $31 for color. So by the time you're done, with the film, you're going to spend $30 to $40 per roll, film, developing, and scanning. So that thing about pushing the button costing you $1 is fairly accurate.
Yeah, and those numbers right there are why the art or the profession of photographer was much more limited back in the day than it is now
Yeah,
because of those things. Because it took so much money to get good. Because you only get good by shooting more and making mistakes. And I mean, before you know it, you're $5,000 into it. You're like, okay, now I understand what an f-stop is. You
yeah.
know?
Well, and it's just interesting because you'll definitely shoot less, not because you're saving money, just because it takes longer with this camera. You'll shoot less.
Yeah.
But I was reading a blog post by Eric Kim, who's a Bay Area street photographer, very good, also a very good teacher. Eric, on a typical outing of street photography, shoots less than one full roll.
Nice.
And I'm thinking, how does he get so many good images? And that's because he's not spending all his time pushing the button. He's spending his time looking around.
Yeah.
So, yeah, think about a dollar a piece. If you're going to buy the film, have it developed and have it scanned.
Okay, so let's wrap this up and put a fine point on it. Film, when you look at film, is film right now relegated to, the island of obscurity or people that just want to play around and nostalgia and all that? Or is it a tool that we as photographers and image makers can employ to do something that we can't do with digital? In other words, when is film better than digital?
That's a good question. I know a few photographers who shoot film. Not a lot, but they're starting to come out of the woodwork as people hear that I'm shooting film and they're getting in touch with me.
Yeah.
First of all, film is the easy way to get the film look, right?
Exactly.
Right. So if you want something that looks like Velvia, don't go out and buy Velvia presets for Lightroom. Go out and buy Velvia film and push the button, right?
Yeah, it's automatically there.
You want something that looks like Tri-X? You can buy filters, you can adjust the grain, or you can just shoot Tri-X. It's really easy.
Yeah.
So the other thing that's better about it, again, is it's so forgiving in terms of latitude. Dynamic range is tremendous, especially with black and white negative.
Yeah.
And so
not slide film. Slide film is
I know.
plus or minus 1/3 of a stop, or you got garbage. Right?
That's right. But I shot some very colorful scenes in Golden Gate Park, and using slide film, they look great. They really do.
Cool.
And you just have to use the right light. But even there, the Sunny 16 rule works. As long as you know what the light is, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
But yes, the latitude in slide film is very limited. And color negative's pretty good. Black and white negative is extraordinary in terms of the stops. But I've got stuff that I knew at the time was one or two stops overexposed, and it looks marvelous. So. When the film is technically better is really if you want that look and if you want latitude and dynamic range. Those are the technical advantages of film, I would say.
So then flip it. When is digital better?
Well, digital is certainly better for a lot of situations, or let's say missions. Sports, action, shooting nature. And it's not so much digital is better in those cases. It's a matter of rapid frame rates, which you could get with a motor drive. It's autofocus. There are film cameras that autofocus. I think are there any film cameras that autofocus? There must be.
Of course. Yeah.
I don't know. I never had one. I never had an automatic focusing digital camera.
Really? Yeah, my Nikon F4 back in the days autofocus.
Oh, I had an original F.
Oh wow, yeah.
It didn't have anything, right?
Yeah, that barely had a letter.
That's right. Yeah, they hadn't invented numbers back then.
No.
Right. You mentioned weddings. Wedding concerts, things where you have to get a lot of shots, where you need to shoot many images in order to be successful. I would definitely go digital. I think if you need the higher resolution, if you want to print large, 35mm film isn't going to do it for you. If you want to make big murals, film's not going to look particularly good at that size. You're going to get a lot of junk in there.
Yep.
But if you're like most of us, and the biggest thing you print is a 16:20, film is just fine. High ISOs, you can push these films 2 stops, 1600. Some people go even farther, but if you want to go above ISO 1600, go digital for sure.
Yeah, you're not going to find a film stock that will match your A7S, right?
That's right, absolutely. And that's why it's funny. As I've been going out, The A7S is the backup camera to my film Leica.
Yeah.
Because it takes, now my A7S takes the exact same lenses, so it's a perfect backup to that, when I maybe get into a situation like a dark interior where I don't have enough light.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, digital, when you want to be prepared for a wide range of situations, you just don't know what you're going to be up against. And here's the obvious one. When you take a picture and you want to be able to show it to somebody right away.
Right.
Because I was doing some street stuff and someone would say to me, "Let me see." And I would start for a moment to show them the camera and say, "No, I can't show you. It's film."
You're like, "Let me get back to you." Yeah.
Wow. I should have asked them. I said, "Well, what's your fax number? I'll send it to you."
Oh God. Fax. Let me send you a binary code through smoke signals.
That's right. That's right.
Wow, that's great.
I'll send it to you on papyrus.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, the other piece is the Wi-Fi and the app stuff on digital, right? So being able to not only show it to people, but like we were talking about earlier, instantly transfer that image over to your phone or tablet, play with it, and then share it with a gazillion people and have them commenting on it while you're still shooting.
I should start a new website called Not So Instagram.
Yeah, Delaygram.
Yeah, right. Wait 2 weeks, right?
Exactly. Delayed gratification gram.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the whole picture there. And I think, again, to go back to the very beginning, which is why I did it, really it was an experiment that I'm sticking with so far. I say it's a month into it, and I'm sure I'll be doing it for at least a couple more months, is to see, first of all, can I make really good photographs? And so far the answer is maybe.
And maybe. You're still learning, right?
Yeah. And the second is, if I, when I do go back to digital, can I actually say that it improved my photography? I think that's a no-brainer, yes.
Yeah.
But I can't prove it yet, so we'll check back in a month.
At the very least, it's making you a more considered photographer. Because if you leave that A7S at home and just go out with the film camera for a couple of weeks or so, when you come back to the A7, you're probably going to shoot a little bit differently, right? Because you're not going to feel like you want to just shoot like a madman and hold the shutter button down.
And one thing about going out with the Leica M6 is it's not about the gear.
Love that. Perfect note to end on. Doug, very good test there. Are you satisfied?
I am.
You're satisfied? Cool. So, so bottom line here, are you going to stick with shooting film, or was this a passing fancy of yours?
I'm committed to shooting film at least through maybe the end of June.
Okay.
I'm taking a workshop, actually. Rather than leading a workshop, I'm taking another workshop with Peter Turnley. In New York City, and I may take the film Leica for that workshop. I'm looking forward to that a lot.
Very cool, very cool, awesome. So what's coming up next on All About the Gear? What are you're gonna? I'm assuming you're gonna move back to actually talking about cameras again, right?
Yeah, we got surprises coming in. I don't want to say anything yet, but
I know all about them.
You do. We got some big changes coming. I can tell you that the next camera that we're going to review on All About the Gear is the Olympus Omd Em5 Mark II.
Ooh, I'm looking forward to that.
I have one in the other room, and I would have pulled it out, but I didn't think of that. So that's the next show. But other than that, you're going to have to stay tuned and see what the surprises are. Hey,
depending on that how that review goes, I may end up buying that EM5. Or maybe an EM1. I'm a Micro Four Thirds shooter, and I have Panasonic gear. But I love the image stabilization in those Olympus cameras. It's just insane. It's magical. So
I want to see, the EM1. If you look at the numerical ratings that we've put in All About the Gear, the EM1 has the highest rating of any camera we've reviewed in 2 years, and it's a marvelous camera. And
I'm gonna get it.
I'm really, but don't do it yet, because I want to see when I'm done with the EM5, is it actually better?
Interesting.
So
okay, I will hold off. I'll hold off, and just like I held off on buying my DJI Phantom Vision 2, and you heard the news as we record this, the news that they just released the 3 today.
I knew that they were going to make an announcement, but I didn't know what it was. Okay.
It happened. We had a TWiP representative in New York City live on the scene when they announced it, giving me a blow-by-blow of what it was, and we'll do some reporting on that soon. But yeah. essentially it's a much better device than the previous cameras, especially when it comes to, or previous drones, especially when it comes to its staying power. Like, I think one of the things that I read about it was that this new drone is almost stable enough when it's in hover mode to do time-lapse video. It's that rock solid sitting in space. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. This is some crazy
time.
And
I'm looking forward to you having a Phantom 3 and shooting film with it.
Oh, yeah, good luck with that. I think I might need 2 or 3 of them to lift up a film camera, along with the wireless gear to trigger it and all that. So. Cool, man. Well, thanks, Doug. This has been, people will find out on the next All About the Gear, after this one, why this particular All About the Gear is historic. Right? So we can't say why it's historic yet, but they will find out in the next All About the Gear why this one was historic. So how about that for a cliffhanger?
Right. Just hold your breath. We'll be there.
Hold your breath. All right, Doug. Thanks a lot, man. This has been a good episode.
All right. Thanks, Frederick. We'll talk to you later.
Okay. See you, Doug.
Okay.